Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Ketuo Meridian, designed by, let's make sure we get this exactly right, Mitchell Pickard, or Pickard. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your last name. This is a knife that I should have reviewed a long time ago, but some of these knives, they get to the bottom of the pile and then they get stuck there and I forget about them. But this is an interesting knife. It's much more of a designy knife than it is a utilitarian knife. It's obviously still a tool. It's a titanium frame lock. It will function, right? It's not delicate or anything like that, but much more in the way of design, I think, than utility. And that's appealing to many people, including myself. So it is interesting, but it's got its downsides like everything else. So it is available. I will link it down in the description. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's up to you. Thanks to Ketuo and Reich for sending this in. Let's go ahead and measure this knife. Not small. Overall length coming in at, boy, over 8.5 inches. Is it 8.65 inches? Blade length is coming in at 3.65. Cutting edge at 3.5 inches. Let's do some size comparisons. Any custom skills you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and Other. So up against the 8010 and the 8020.5. You can see here it's big. It's actually longer than the 8010. It's just nowhere near as robust. Let's put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. Again, much longer, much more cutting edge. And then finally, let's put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. So how's the action on this knife? It's a flipper, and it operates on bearings, and it's also a Reich produced, to my knowledge. Ketuo is not a separate entity when it comes to manufacturing, right? It's built by Reich, and Reich makes a good knife, for sure. Two things to note. Number one, it has that sort of curved flipper, so it's like it's not sure if it wants to be a push button flipper or a light switch flipper. It's kind of trying to be both, and the detent honestly is fine, but it's not heavy enough for you to pull that off, right? So with this detent strength, you kind of have to pick a lane. You got to be one or the other. I think push button, right? The other thing, where this decides to engage with your finger, it feels like it's double clutchy, right? It's not. I just want people to know, like, by this position, the detent ball is still up on the face of the blade. It's something about this flipper tab that just doesn't inspire confidence. It makes me go, is the detent ball up on the face of the blade? It is. And the position where it gets there is right here. Right there. That's the detent ball, and now we're up, so we're good to go, right? The action's nice and smooth. I just think it just needs a flipper tab that is a different shape to stick with this detent strength, or you need to increase the detent strength so that this type of flipper tab feels good as kind of this halvesy in between light switch push button thing, right? But it's fine. It's just not like, it doesn't feel like perfectly tuned, like, this most satisfying, right? It doesn't feel like that. It just feels like, oh yeah, it deploys. It also has a touch of lock stick, and on top of that, it is not cut out here in the front for better access to this side. While it is carved out on both sides, it is a little bit pinchy. It's not a sharp 90-degree angle, but there is a ledge there that doesn't feel perfect. So that combined with the lackluster detent, not bad, just lackluster, and then the lock stick and the, just the less than optimal experience disengaging it. Very, very nitpicky, right? After reviewing however many thousand knives, I start to nitpick stuff like that. It's not perfect. It's okay, but it's not perfect. Pivot action, though, bearing action is fine. Carry profile, thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's maybe slightly thicker, but it's also contoured, so it actually feels pretty good. We'll come back to that. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3 actually carries pretty easily because of its slender profile, even with the enlarged flipper tab or the prominent flipper tab. It's nowhere near as tall as something like the Para 3, right? So it's a long knife and it is made out of titanium, but it doesn't feel like a cumbersome object. let's go ahead and, oh, this thing's just sitting in here. The laser pointer's just sitting here on. Oh, black light. Turn off. Oh no, I still have the laser. God, I'm just getting old. Oh, you know why? You gotta push the off button. Okay. Holy moly. I'm not 40 yet. I'm 37. That wasn't a good look, guys. Okay. So what I want to do here is the hardware check, which does not require a flashlight. I'm going to get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. I believe the body screws are T8. We're going to check those first. And I'm wrong. They're T6, which is a bummer. I hate T6, but okay. It's probably also the same with the hidden pocket clip screw is T6. The pivot, which looks proprietary, can definitely be adjusted with a flathead, which is annoying because the first time you go at that decorative, it's a functional but definitely designy pivot. The very first time you take a flathead to that, you're going to dick it up. Just go with Torx and make the design around it. Go with a simple T8 Torx pivot and then design around it, right? I don't like the flathead pivots. They're fine. You can adjust them, right? But the people who are buying stuff like this, there's going to be plenty of people being like, so what? It's a knife. Just use it like a tool. All my tools are beat up and great. Are you actually considering buying this? No, that's because this wasn't designed for you, right? That's the answer for a lot of people who are going to say stuff like that, right? The people who are actually considering buying stuff like this, they want the utility of it. They want to use it. But at the same time, they also probably appreciate the look and the design elements. They probably don't want to dick it up because it looks cool. It obviously was meant to, have that feature, right? So a nice way to balance that is to make the pivot functionality, right, the adjustment head, make it a Torx, something simple. And then if you want to add fun pivot colors and flair and spice and zazz and pomp and frill around it, fine, because the tool is not going to interact with any of that stuff, right? So it's not that everybody who likes that kind of stuff is wrong. There's a way to make it work. I just don't like pivots like this. But truth be told, if you need to adjust it, you can. You just have to be really, really careful if you care about how that pivot looks, which, considering the price and who this is clearly meant for, you probably do, right? I would be like, I'm not going to touch that. Like if I really had to, I would probably shave down a couple of credit cards and make my own little plastic, obviously used or credit cards that I don't use anymore, right? Expired credit cards. Shave them down into my own flathead tool, tape them or glue them together, and then adjust it that way so that I don't mess it up, right? But I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit of an intense rant. I just don't like it. So, but outside of that, it's a simple frame lock. So as long as you have the right tools for the job, you are good to go. Let's weigh it. What are we looking at for materials? We're looking at M390 for the blade. We're looking at titanium for the frame with absolutely no internal milling for some reason, but okay. Weight on this guy is coming in at 4.4 ounces, which is no surprise at all. And because there's no internal milling, we are a ways back from the pivot, but it's not terrible. You could have had perfect balance and a little bit better weight, considering how much blade you've got, by milling it out. So there's an interesting choice there, but no. Blade stock thickness, and then we'll move on to the meat and potatoes, which will actually not be a super long segment because there's not a ton to say. What are we looking at? 130? Less. 120 thousandths actually. Okay, meat and potato time. I actually have both versions of this here. The purplish bluish one is kind of interesting because it's almost got like a tumbled high polish finish. It's really nice, but not everybody likes that. So you can also choose bead blasted. You're forced to go with the gold. What do we call this? It's like a perforated drum symbol, but it is neat. It's unique and it gives this character, right? And it's fine if not everybody loves it, but it definitely isn't something that I see all the time. It also acts as the over travel, which is neat, right? If you're wondering, does that knife not have a lock bar insert? It actually does. You can see it right here. It's just totally hidden. It's just on the inside, and then the screw, right? The threads don't go all the way through. So that's kind of neat. Has this long, slender profile look without being a dainty knife. right? If you're holding this knife in person, it's definitely not small. It's contoured and fairly robust, right? You have an M390 blade. In this case, we have an all, every company calls this something different. It's not Migron. Maybe it's one of those companies calls it pearlescent, which is funny. We calls it silver bead blast. I don't know what they call this, right? But it's the same type of thing. It's probably a glass blasted blade. Doesn't look quite as nice as vapor blasting, but that's probably what it is glass blasting. This one is a two-tone machine satin and tumbled finish, which is kind of neat. If you want the more fancy looking one here, and if you want the less fancy one, looking one, then here. They both are $255, which I normally don't say right at or in the middle of the review, but I'll tell you right now that's what you're looking at. HRC on the blades, had to dig a bit for their general HRC range for M390. It appears to be 59 to 61. Same thing that I say to all companies working with M390 or 20CV or 204P. Bump it up to at least 60 to 62. That'll make a lot of people happy, and I very much doubt that you'll see any issues with this. It's just going to increase the general range and the performance in terms of edge retention, right? And you're going to make, even if your buyers are not using these knives in a way, it's going to really accentuate the maximum potential. It's not really the point. That's just what people want to see. And then the people who are going to do that will be satisfied with it. Edge geometry, it comes down to kind of a medium edge. It's not really, I wouldn't call it a thin edge. It's far from thick though. It's fine. Flat ground all the way up, right? It's kind of an interesting, designy grind. Like it's not, it's not like super wacky or super wild. Really, a lot of the personality just comes from the pivot collar and the fact that it's so big. And then we have this big, clean, straight look. I would have loved it if they had found a way to use just for the show side to do 2 screws and then go through and thread partially into the other side and then stop so that it was hidden. That would have been so cool. Because I think that this would have looked really clean that way. But that's okay that it's not. I just think it would have been neat. Because this is a Reich manufactured knife, these both have lock stick. Just a little bit, right? But because they are a Reich manufactured knife, the overall fit and finish outside of the lock stick thing, which will wear itself in or wear itself out, the overall fit and finish is great. Little bit of a smile back here. Just a teeny tiny bit on both knives. It's not a big deal. Like on this side, it looks perfect. So they definitely are able to do it perfectly. For some reason, the show sides of both of these were a little wider, but it's fine, right? Carrying these knives in and out of the pocket, very smooth, very easy. I don't love the small ceramic balls. They're a little bit pinchy, but the tension on both of these pocket clips is not insane. So honestly, it was fine. Using the knife, in terms of the comfort, it's a contoured titanium frame and it's very, very open. These are just abrupt ledges. They're not sharp. It's just weird because it looks like it would be super comfortable and you grab it and you're like, oh, it's kind of okay, right? That's just how it feels. Backspacer, a little awkward because it says Ketuo, which I don't love. I wish you guys had a unique pivot that you could use, kind of like Wee knives or Civivi knives, but I don't love the printing of Ketuo on the backspacer. I think it would look better if you just put it on the inside of the frame, right? Where you turn a little bit and you see Ketuo maybe on the inside of the relief cut, which, by the way, this is, to my knowledge, the only knife I have ever seen where the relief cut is both on the inside and technically on the outside. Why is that like that? That's so weird. First of all, technically, a knife with a titanium frame lock or any frame lock where the relief cut is on the outside is stronger because of the amount of the position of the material supporting the lock, right? Technically, you would have to abuse the knife in order to get the frame lock to disengage prematurely on a knife where the relief cut is on the inside, which what would be like this, not counting this part, right? So is it technically weaker? Technically, but again, you got to be doing some stupid caveman stuff for that to work against you. I've never seen a cut on both the outside and the inside before. That's really wild. But it feels like there's plenty of tension and there's no I'm not feeling any like slip or anything like that, so it's fine. I get a little nervous when the lock bar tension is light and I'm feeling lock slip. Then I don't trust it, right? But these feel fine. So don't love the Ketuo on the backspacer. Like I said, a little lanyard bar there for lanyard people. This is a milled clip and is not symmetrical, and there's no position for lefties, which is a bummer. I always like it when we get, you know, stuff for lefties, but we didn't this time. Sorry, lefties. We have a stop pin that's located in its traditional spot with some very deep shouldering, deep in there. No blade play up, down, left, or right on either of these. A little bit of lock stick, like I said. No pivot lash. Smooth and consistent here. And just a, you know, not the best feeling detent. It's fine. I just wish it was a little stronger. No detent lash on either knife. These knives are $255. So considering what you're getting here, right? This is a Chinese premium titanium frame lock with an M390 blade. Unquestionable designy elements that we don't typically get, right? It's kind of a cool pivot color. You can love it or hate it, but we don't typically see it. Contour titanium, full titanium backspacer, anodizing, right? Especially anodizing if you want. You don't pay any more for this. And an anodized titanium pocket clip. So if we're comparing apples to apples, which is not just knife, right? Other Chinese premium knives that are utilizing the similar elements, the similar precision machining, the contouring, the materials. Yeah, $255 is pretty competitive. This is, like I said, much more of a designy knife than it is an extremely utilitarian knife. It'll work, right? But it's going to appeal to people more for the design elements. But, you know, if we're talking how it's priced, like, yeah, I think it's priced fair. It's still not going to appeal to the vast majority of people, right? If you like how this looks, I think it's $255 well spent. Hopefully yours doesn't come with lock stick and it breaks in. Outside of that, I think it's fine. If you don't like how this looks, definitely search somewhere else. At the $250 price point, there are tons and tons of knives that are competitive with this, right? So it's fine, but it's not an overly recommendable knife, right? So if you already own this knife, you're watching this video for reaffirmation, hey, if you like it, then I think it's fine, right? There's just a lot of options at this price point. This is an interesting one, a little bit weird. That's going to be it for today, guys. Just shave my thumbnail off there. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.